What's up, everybody? This is Phil from Zaid Comics. I am the writer and co-creator of Magic Cop, which is live now on Indiegogo. It's an awesome comic that we are creating, and I am just one half of the two best-looking brothers in all of comics. And today we're doing another comic review. I think 2 weeks ago or so, I put up a review of the new Mask #1, the new Mask series that Dark Horse is putting out, called I Pledge Allegiance to the Mask. And you can check that out on our channel. It'll probably be at the end of the video here, so you can take a look at that. And that got a good reception. We had a lot of people that were digging that video. So I really love the Mask and kind of used that to get into the original, like, classic series from the Mask from the 90s. And I picked up this bad boy, the Mask Omnibus. There's 2 volumes of this, and I picked up this one after I read the first, like, little mini series of the first appearance of the Mask, which was put out in a anthology by Dark Horse called Mayhem. Now, I'm going to show pages of that. It is in black and white, but for this, when they did release it in a trade, Doug Mahnke and Matt Webb did the colors, and this brings the story to a whole nother level when you're looking at this, because if you're a child of the 90s like I am, and you're a fan of Jim Carrey, then of course you're going to be a fan of The Mask, and you're going to know that probably this world that they've put together is super brightly colored, which is very interesting that its first appearance was in fact in black and white. But if you do like this review, I would suggest pick up the Omnibus, because the colors in it are great. It brings everything together. So I do want to kind of show how these colors look here, and then get into the black and white pages, because the black and white pages do look really cool as well. It's very interesting to see both the line work without the colors, and then later them go in and put them in, make everything pop. You don't get to see that too often when you're following a comic series. So yeah, this actually the first chapter of this omnibus it's kind of extended from the Mayhem series, because I think there's only 4 issues of the Mayhem series, and then the main story with Stanley Ipkiss does extend into a whole other story with Calloway donning the mask, and that's really interesting. We'll get into that later, but right now I kind of wanted to do a series of going through these Mayhem issues and talking about the 12 pages that, the 12-page short stories that were provided in these books. So here's the awesome Mayhem cover, the first appearance of the Mask, as drawn by Doug Mahnke. And look at this. I mean, this is jumping off the shelf into all those teens' hands, all the excessive ultraviolence and blood. You just want to know who this character is. And like I said before, this is kind of like an anthology. We have Mayhem #1, and there's multiple stories in here. So the first story is the Mask, and then there's 2 other stories, I believe, that we're not going to get into, because we're just talking about the Mask here. And like I said, as you can see, black and white. And if you're a fan of the movies and you've never read any of the books, you'll see a lot of similarities here. To my knowledge, before I even read any of this, I heard that it was vastly different because of the excessive ultraviolence and the blood and the crazy manic, well, he's manic in the movie, but like the crazy violent nature of the Mask character, the big head character as they call him in the story. But right off the bat, we get a big nod from the comic into the movie, where our main character here is Stanley Ipkiss. It doesn't look like Jim Carrey. This guy's wearing glasses. He looks kind of like a dweeb. And in fact, he's buying, this one has a girlfriend. In the movie, he doesn't have a girlfriend, but he's buying this mask at kind of like this antique store or this pawn shop, I believe, for his girlfriend. And again, right off the bat, there's some little inciting incident here. These bikers splash up on his car, and he yells at them as they're riding past, and they come back and beat the crap out of him. So not having a good day. And as he's going to his girlfriend's place, he's imagining himself beating the living hell out of these bikers because he was embarrassed. He's roughed up, and the mask actually talks to him. He says, "Let's go waste those." Word, because demonetization, even though we're not monetized, but let's go waste those punks. And he thinks he's hearing things because he's so angry. And as we get a little backstory between their relationship, she's happy that she got a gift from him because he's been a real douche lately. And we finally get that scene of him putting the mask on, and this art is really what jumped out to me, where he's wearing those pajamas, right? So another thing pulled from the comic into the movie, and the pajamas actually mix up into a new suit with the big head, and we finally get to see the mask. And it gets to it pretty quick. And what are you going to do when you have the abilities of the mask and you figure out that you're impervious to damage? Again, right from the movie, getting hit by the car and pulls himself up like nothing happened. And even right here, this quote, "I must share these powers with mankind, use them to protect and serve others indeed. But first," and they use that straight from the comic into the movie.
Incredible. With these powers, I could be a superhero! I could fight crime, protect the innocent. Work for world peace! But first...
And he goes and wrecks these guys at the biker joint. And I love this reoccurring kind of like trope that, it's a gimmick that the mask does, is he'll impersonate other people, right? And then when he is going to reveal himself, he tears the skin off of his face in this bloody goop. And it looks really cool in black and white. He does it a bunch in this series, and it looks even better in color. And so he's basically just reliving those fantasies that he had as Stanley Ipkiss. The mask heightens all of his emotion and his impulsivities. And he just feeds into those impulses when he becomes the crazy, big-headed kind of vigilante, but also anti-hero at the same time, breaking bats over people's heads, and to the point where he even manifests out of nothing, out of thin air. He's able to conjure up a Mac 10 and just mows people down. But not before getting shot with a shotgun blast. And it doesn't even faze him. He's totally fine. Sets the place ablaze and wakes up the next day like nothing happened. And then this little episode here ends with him watching TV, seeing that biker joint has been burnt to the ground. People are saying it's a masked madman, and as we can see, Stanley is guarding that mask with his life. So I thought it was an awesome introduction. I read it like this at first before I went and picked up the Mask omnibus, and I fell in love with the character over again, because you have that same manic, crazy speech, and I want to focus on that right now. The way he talks, the lettering in this book for this character is perfect, because it jumps off the page. You're getting those, this guy's talking like a cartoon character. He's talking sometimes very loudly, and he could be talking in any voice your head can conjure up, but those letters specifically make it so harsh. And I think that was a great way to convey that, and probably led to a lot of the dialogue and the enunciation that Jim Carrey used in the movie. So that is some of my favorite lettering. I definitely want to mess around with that, maybe find some places to use some inspiration from that in my future comics, because that is really, really, really unique. You don't see that anymore. And all these letters back then, this was hand drawn into the book. So props to those guys. The letterer, which I can look up right here, because we gotta give those guys some credit. The letterer is Pat Brousseau and David Jackson. So overall, this is what led me to get this omnibus. His manic personality and being ultra violent. So it's the best of both worlds, right? This is the original. When they made the movie, they took that violence out to make it more family friendly. Probably so Jim Carrey would be in it, because he was, he made a bunch of money that year. I think this was his first big hit of that year, and then he had Dumb and Dumber after that, and then he had another big one. So this made him one of the highest paid actors in the 90s overall, this IP, and it was a huge hit for Dark Horse. In fact, they wanted him to come back for a second one, and Jim Carrey turned down the $10 million because someone said that this would not be, getting put in this role again would not be a good career choice. I think he was also filming Ace Ventura 2 at the same time as they wanted to do The Mask 2. But what do you guys think? Have you guys ever seen this, the original story of The Mask? Did you know he was because when I was a kid, I didn't know he was a super violent character, and a lot of people didn't. So let us know what you're thinking in the comments, and yeah, I really want to go through these. There's, I think, 3 more Mayhem issues where it kind of wraps up this short story, and then it goes on from there. The Mask has a really long running history and series. We'll probably, when we get to that point, we'll jump over to the color version, show that off, and hit the notifications buttons. I do stream all the time, and sub if you aren't already. Thank you for checking this out, and I will see you later. Peace. Did you guys know that Brandon Diaz, the artist of Magic Cop, has his very own Patreon page? You guys can head on over there and pledge for either $5 or $8 a month, and you get these beautiful digitally painted pictures by Brandon. He does one a week for all of his members. So head on over there, check it out.